The distress signal came at midnight, ship time. It was weak and broken, cutting through the silence of space like a dying whisper. Lieutenant Park Jisoo was alone in the research lab when she heard the alarm. She put down her work and walked quickly to the bridge. Captain Cho Taiho stood at the center of the room, his face hard and serious. Around him, officers worked at their stations, trying to find the source of the signal. "What do we have?" Jisoo asked. "Crash site," the captain said without looking at her. "Small moon, about 2 hours from here. The signal is coming from a Velthari transport ship." Jisoo felt her stomach tighten. The Velthari were a powerful species in the galaxy. They were known for their cold logic and their strict laws. They had no mercy for those who broke their rules. If one of their ships had crashed, they would not want outsiders to find it first. "Do we know what kind of transport?" she asked. "Prison ship," said Lieutenant Commander Beek Sun-ho from his station. His voice was flat. They were moving prisoners to an execution facility. The bridge became quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. The Velthari did not believe in second chances. Their prisoners were not thieves or small criminals. They were species that the Velthari had decided were too dangerous to live. Captain Cho turned to look at Jisoo. "You are our xenobiologist. I want you on the away team. We go down, we check for survivors, we report to Coalition Command." "Nothing more," Jisoo nodded. "Understood, sir." 2 hours later, the shuttle broke through the thin atmosphere of the moon. It was a dead place covered in gray rock and dust, no water. No life. The perfect place to hide a crashed ship that no one was supposed to find. The Velthari transport lay broken across a shallow valley. It had hit the ground hard and torn itself apart. Smoke still rose from some parts of the wreckage. Metal pieces were scattered everywhere like broken bones. Jisoo stepped out of the shuttle with 3 other crew members. The air was thin and cold. She could see her breath forming small clouds in front of her face. "Spread out," she ordered. "Look for survivors. Be careful." They moved through the wreckage slowly. Jisoo climbed over twisted metal and broken walls. She saw Velthari bodies here and there, their gray skin turned white in death. She did not stop to look at them for long. There was nothing she could do for the dead. Then she heard something, a low sound, like breathing. It came from a large piece of the ship that had stayed mostly whole. Jisoo moved toward it carefully. She pulled out her light and shined it into the darkness. Eyes looked back at her, many eyes, glowing amber in the dark. Jisoo stopped breathing for a moment. She knew those eyes. Every child in the galaxy learned about the species that had those eyes. The Kure, Volf-like creatures with silver and black fur, sharp teeth, and a hunger for blood. At least that was what the story said. There were 7 of them. They huddled together in the broken room, wounded and weak. Their fur was dirty with blood and ash. Some of them could barely lift their heads. The largest one, a female with old scars across her face, pushed herself up on shaking legs. She stood between Jisoo and the others, ready to fight even though she could barely stand. Jisoo did not move. She did not reach for her weapon. She just stood there, looking at the creature in front of her. The Kure female watched her with intelligent eyes. There was no madness in those eyes, no hunger for killing. Jisoo saw only exhaustion, pain, and something else. Something that looked like acceptance. Like the creature had already decided how this would end. "Lieutenant Park!" One of her team members came running. He stopped when he saw what was in front of her. His hand went to his weapon immediately. "Kure, we need to get out of here." "Wait," Jisoo said. Her voice was calm but firm. "They are not attacking. They are Kure. They will attack. Everyone knows what they are." Jisoo looked at the wounded creatures again. A younger male was lying on the ground, his breathing shallow and fast. He would not survive much longer without help. Another one, barely more than a child, pressed against the scarred female's side, shaking with fear. These were not monsters. These were refugees. She activated her communication device. "Captain, I found survivors, 7 of them. They are Kure." There was a long silence. Then the captain's voice came through, cold and final. "Kure are condemned prisoners of the Velthari Empire. Coalition protocol is clear. Do not engage. marked the location. Return to the ship. Sir, they are wounded. They will die if we leave them here. That is not our concern, Lieutenant. They were being transported for execution. The Valkyrie will send someone to finish the job. Our involvement ends now. Return to the ship. That is in order. Jisoo looked at the scarred female one more time. The creature had understood the conversation somehow. Maybe she knew some galactic common. Maybe she just understood the tone. Either way, she lowered her head slowly, like she was nodding, like she was telling Jisoo that it was okay, that she expected nothing different. The team moved back to the shuttle. Jisoo was the last one to leave the wreckage. She stood at the door for a long moment, looking back at the broken ship and the dying creatures inside. The scarred female watched her go. She did not howl. She did not cry. She just watched, her amber eyes glowing in the smoke and shadows. Jisoo climbed into the shuttle. The door closed. The engines started, but as they flew back to the ship, Jisoo could not stop seeing those eyes. Tired eyes, knowing eyes. Eyes that had seen this story play out 100 times before. And for the first time in her career, Lieutenant Park Jisoo began to question her orders. Jisoo could not sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the scarred female standing in the darkness. She saw the young one shaking with fear. She saw the wounded male whose breathing was too fast and too shallow. She got out of bed and walked to her research station. The ship was quiet at this hour. Most of the crew was asleep. Only the night shift workers moved through the halls, their footsteps soft and distant. Jisoo sat down at her computer and began to search. She typed one word into the database, Kure. The first results were what she expected: warnings, danger reports. Images of the Volflight creatures with their teeth bared and their claws out. Words like savage and uncontrollable and feral appeared again and again. But Jisoo did not stop there. She went deeper. She found older files, records from before the Valkyrie conquered the Kure homeworld 300 years ago. These files told a different story. The early explorers had written about the Kure with respect, even admiration. They described a species that lived in tight family groups called packs. They wrote about complex social rules and deep loyalty. They mentioned songs that the Kure sang under their 3 moons, and stories they passed down from parent to child for generations. One explorer had written, "The Kure are not the monsters that later reports would claim. They are proud, yes, and fierce when threatened. But I've never met a species more devoted to their families or more honest in their dealings." Jisoo leaned back in her chair. What had happened? How did a species described as honorable become known across the galaxy as mindless killers? She searched further and found her answer buried in old Valkyrie military records. After conquering the Kure homeworld, the Valkyrie had faced rebellion after rebellion. The Kure would not submit. They would not accept their chains. So the Valkyrie changed them. Jisoo found reports of genetic experiments. The Valkyrie had altered the Kure, making them more aggressive, more prone to violence, harder to control. Then they pointed to this violence as proof that the Kure were animals who needed to be caged or killed. It was a lie 300 years old. A lie that had condemned an entire species to death. Jisoo saved everything she found. Then she went to find the one person on the ship she could trust completely. Dr. Yoon Myrae was in the medical bay, working late as always. She looked up when Jisoo entered, her tired eyes becoming alert when she saw her friend's face. "What happened?" Myrae asked. "You look like you have not slept at all." Jisoo told her everything. The crash. The survivors. The records she had found. Myrae listened without interrupting, her expression growing more serious with each word. When Jisoo finished, Myrae was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke carefully. "What are you planning to do?" "I am going back," Jisoo said. "I am going to help them." "Jisoo, if you do this and something goes wrong, they will court-martial you. They might throw you in prison. Your career will be over." "I know." "And if the Kure attack you?" "If the stories are even partly true, then I will die knowing I tried to do the right thing." Jisoo met her friend's eyes. Myray, I cannot leave them there. I cannot fly away and pretend I do not know they are dying on that moon. That is not who I am. That is not who humans are supposed to be. Myray sighed deeply. She stood up and walked to a storage cabinet. She began pulling out medical supplies, bandages, antibiotics, and pain medication. You will need these, she said quietly, and water purification tablets, and emergency food packs. I will say I used them for inventory testing. Jisoo felt tears come to her eyes. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. Just come back alive. 3 hours later, Jisoo took a small shuttle down to the moon alone. She had filed the flight as an equipment retrieval mission. No one questioned it. No one cared about a xenobiologist going back to study crash debris. The wreckage looked the same as before, dark and broken under the cold stars. Jisoo landed nearby and walked toward the section where she had found the Corée. They knew she was coming. She could feel eyes watching her from the shadows. When she entered the broken room, she found them waiting. The young male who had been so close to death was still alive, but barely. The others stood or lay around him in a protective circle. The scarred female was at the front, watching Jisoo with those golden eyes. A younger male suddenly rushed forward, snapping his jaws just inches from Jisoo's face. His teeth were long and sharp. His growl shook the air. Jisoo did not move. She did not run. She stood completely still, her heart pounding but her body calm. The scarred female barked once, sharp and commanding. The young male stopped immediately. He stepped back, though his eyes stayed fixed on Jisoo with anger and fear. Jisoo slowly knelt down. She opened her bag and pulled out a container of water. She held it out toward the scarred female. Seconds passed. No one moved. Then the scarred female walked forward slowly and carefully. She sniffed the water. She looked at Jisoo's face for a long moment, searching for something. Then she drank. When she finished, she spoke. Her voice was rough and broken, the words in Galactic Common coming with difficulty. But Jisoo understood her perfectly. Why? The Corée asked. Why help us? Your kind leaves. Always leaves. Why do you come back? Jisoo thought about the question. She thought about the old records and the lies and the dying young male behind her. Because someone should, she said finally. Because you deserve better. Because mercy should not be so rare in this galaxy that it surprises you. The scarred female stared at her for a long time. Then slowly she lowered her head in what looked like a bow. I am Van, she said. I will remember this. We will all remember. Jisoo began unpacking her supplies. She had a lot of work to do. And for the first time since leaving the ship, she felt something like hope. The weeks that followed were the strangest and most wonderful of Jisoo's life. She made trip after trip to the crashed ship, always finding excuses, always covering her tracks. Each time she returned, the Shurei grew a little stronger. And each time they trusted her a little more. The young male who had been dying slowly came back to life. His name was Bio, and he was barely an adult by Corée standards. He had been arrested for stealing food for his younger siblings. The Velthari had sentenced him to death for that crime. The aggressive one who had snapped at Jisoo on her first visit was called Ron. He watched her with suspicious eyes for many days, always staying between her and the others. But Jisoo noticed that he never actually threatened her after that first time. He was protecting his pack, not hunting her. Through broken conversations and slow patience, Jisoo learned about each of them. There was Sori, the smallest one, who had been born in a prison camp and had never seen the sky until the ship crashed. There was old Dan, who had lost 3 of his children to Velthari soldiers and now barely spoke at all. There was Nari, who sang soft songs when she thought no one was listening, songs from a homeworld she had never seen. And there was Van, the scarred leader, who held them all together. One night, while treating a wound on Van's shoulder, Jisoo finally asked the question that had been burning inside her. What were your people like? She asked. Before the Velthari came? Van was quiet for a long time. The others had stopped what they were doing to listen. Even Ron moved closer, his ears turned toward his leader. "We were many things," Van said at last. Her voice was soft with memory. "We were hunters and singers. We were builders and storytellers. Each pack had its own territory, but we shared the great forests under the three moons." She looked up at the dark sky through a hole in the broken ship. "We had a word in our language. It does not translate well. The closest meaning is ... belonging, connection to land, to pack, to ancestors, to children not yet born. We believed that nothing truly died as long as it was remembered." "What happened when the Velthari came?" Jisoo asked quietly. "They came with fire from the sky," Van said. Her voice hardened. "They burned our forest. They killed our elders, the keepers of our stories. They took our children and put them in camps where they could not learn who they were. They told us we were animals. They treated us like animals. And after enough generations—" She paused, her golden eyes meeting Jisoo's. "Some of us started to believe them." Jisoo felt something break inside her chest. 300 years of systematic destruction. Not just of bodies, but of culture, of identity, of everything that made the Kore who they were. "I found records," Jisoo said. "I know what they did to your people's genetics. The changes they made to make you more aggressive." Van nodded slowly. "We know. The elders passed down the truth even when the Velthari tried to erase it. That is why they fear us so much. Not because we are violent. They made us violent. They fear us because we remember, because we will not forget what we were. What we could be again?" Ron spoke for the first time in Jisoo's presence. His voice was rough and angry, but underneath the anger she heard pain. "My pack was killed when I was young," he said. "A pacification operation, they called it. My mother, my father, my brothers. They burned our shelter with everyone inside. I survived only because I had gone to find water." His hands closed into fists. "I was 7 years old." Jisoo did not know what to say. What words could possibly be enough for that kind of loss? "I am sorry," she said finally. "I know that is not enough. But I am sorry for what was done to you. To all of you." Ron stared at her with those burning amber eyes. Then slowly he unclenched his fists. "You are strange, human. You apologize for things you did not do. You help those you have no reason to help. I do not understand you." "Maybe that is what being human means," Jisoo said. "Caring about people even when we do not have to." Back on the ship, Jisoo thought no one had noticed her secret trips. She was wrong. Ensign Kang Doan had been watching her for weeks. He was a young officer with big ambitions and a bitter heart. He had competed with Jisoo for a research position years ago and had lost. He had never forgiven her for that. Now he saw his chance. He counted her trips. He noted the missing supplies. He tracked the shuttle movements that did not match her official reports. On the morning of her 15th trip to the moon, Do-hwan walked into Captain Cho's office with a folder full of evidence. "Sir," he said, his voice eager with satisfaction, "I believe Lieutenant Park has been secretly contacting the Kore survivors. I think she has been helping them." Captain Cho looked at the folder. His face became very still. "Are you certain about this, Ensign?" "Yes, sir. I have documented everything." The captain was silent for a long moment. Then he pressed a button on his desk. "Lieutenant Park, report to the bridge immediately." In the crashed ship on the moon below, Van suddenly lifted her head. Her ears turned toward some sound that only she could hear. "Something is wrong," she said quietly. "I can feel it." The other Kore gathered close, their eyes turning toward the sky where their human friend would come from. But this time the sky remained empty. The bridge of the Starward Sentinel was silent when Jisoo arrived. Captain Cho stood at the center, his arms crossed over his chest. Behind him, the senior officers watched with mixed expressions. Some looked angry, some looked worried. "Ensign." Kang Doan stood to one side, his face bright with victory. Jisoo stopped in front of the captain and straightened her shoulders. She knew what was coming. There was no point in lying. "Lieutenant Park," the captain said slowly. I have received a report that you have been making unauthorized trips to the Valkyrie crash site. The report claims you have been providing aid to the Kore prisoners. Is this true? Yes, sir, Jisu said clearly. It is true, a murmur ran through the bridge. Doan smiled wider. The captain's eyes narrowed. Do you understand what you have done? His voice was hard. Coalition law is clear. Those prisoners were condemned by the Valkyrie Empire. By helping them, you have committed an act that could be considered hostile to an allied government. You have endangered this ship, this crew, and the peace between our species. With respect, sir, I understand the law, Jisu replied. But the law is wrong. The law is wrong? The captain's voice rose. You decided this alone? You decided to risk everything because you disagreed with coalition policy? No, sir. I decided because the Kure are not what the Valkyrie claim. Jisu pulled out a small device from her pocket. Permission to present evidence, Captain? The captain stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once, sharply. Jisu activated the device. Images and documents appeared on the main screen. She explained what she had found in the old records. She showed them the accounts from early explorers who had described the Kure as an honorable species. She presented the Valkyrie military files that proved the genetic modifications. The Valkyrie created the monsters they claimed to fear, Jisu said. They altered the Kure to be more violent, then used that violence as justification to exterminate them. This is not justice. This is genocide dressed up in legal language. The bridge crew watched in stunned silence. Even Doan's smile had faded. I have also documented my interactions with the survivors, Jisu continued. They have not attacked me once. They have culture, history, and identity that the Valkyrie tried to destroy. They are not animals, they are people, and they are dying on that moon because the galaxy decided to believe lies instead of looking for the truth. Captain Cho's face was unreadable. He turned to look at the evidence on the screen for a long time. Lieutenant Commander Beek Sunho spoke first. His voice was careful, as always. Even if everything you say is true, Lieutenant, what do you expect us to do? We cannot fight the Valkyrie Empire. We are one ship. We do not need to fight, Jisu said. We just need to protect. She brought up another document on the screen. There is an old human law rarely used in galactic politics. It is called the right of sanctuary. Any species may grant protection to refugees if they can prove that those refugees face systematic persecution. The Kure qualify. The evidence I have collected proves it. And if we invoke this law, the captain asked quietly, then the Kure become protected persons under human law. The Valkyrie cannot touch them without starting a formal dispute with the entire human government, not just our ship. Jisu took a deep breath. It is risky. It might cause political problems, but it is legal, Captain, and it is right. The silence stretched out. Jisu could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Finally, Dr. Yoon Maire stepped forward. She had been standing at the back of the bridge, watching everything. I helped her, Maire said. Her voice was calm and steady. I gave her the medical supplies. I knew what she was doing, and I supported it. If she is to be punished, then I should be punished too. Another officer stepped forward, then another, and another. Within moments, nearly half the bridge crew had declared their support for Jisu. Captain Cho watched this happen with an expression that was impossible to read. When the movement stopped, he spoke. Lieutenant Park, you are asking me to bet my career, my ship, and possibly the peace between species on your belief that these creatures are worth saving. Yes, sir, Jisu said. I am. And if you are wrong, if they attack us? If they prove to be exactly what the Valkyries say they are, then I will take full responsibility. But I am not wrong, Captain. I have looked into their eyes. I have heard their stories. They are not our enemies. They just want to survive. The captain was silent for what felt like forever. Doan looked between them nervously, his victory suddenly uncertain. Then Captain Cho Taiho did something unexpected. He smiled. It was a small smile, tired and worried, but real. I have served in this fleet for 30 years, he said. I have followed orders and obeyed laws even when they felt wrong. I told myself that the system was bigger than me, that one person could not change anything. He looked at Jisoo, but perhaps I was just afraid. He turned to the helm officer, set a course back to the moon. Maximum speed. Jisoo felt tears spring to her eyes. Sir, bring them aboard, Lieutenant, quietly and quickly. We will deal with the consequences together. He paused and looked around the bridge at his crew. That is what humans do, after all. We face our problems together. Doan's face went pale. Captain, I must protest. The regulations clearly state that, Ensign Kong, the captain cut him off, you may file whatever reports you wish. But right now, you will either help or you will get out of the way. Choose quickly. Doan closed his mouth and stepped back. He did not speak again. 2 hours later, a shuttle descended toward the broken ship on the moon below. This time, it was not carrying just Jisoo. Dr. Murray was beside her, along with a full medical team and security officers who had volunteered for the mission. When Jisoo walked into the wreckage, Van was waiting for her. The old Curie's eyes were wide with confusion and hope. You came back, Van said. We thought it was over. Jisoo smiled and held out her hand. It is not over. It is just beginning. Come with me. There are people who want to meet you. People who believe you deserve to live. For the first time since Jisoo had met her, Van made a sound that was almost like a laugh. It was rough and unpracticed, like she had forgotten how. You humans, she said, shaking her head slowly. You are the strangest creatures in the galaxy. I know, Jisoo said. That is what makes us interesting. One by one, the Kure followed her out of the darkness and into the light. The Kure walked onto the starward sentinel like ghosts stepping into a dream. They moved carefully, their eyes wide, their bodies tense. For most of them, this was the first time they had been inside a clean, bright space in their entire lives. The prison ships they knew were dark and cold and smelled of fear. The crew watched them come aboard. Some humans stepped back nervously. Others stared with open curiosity. But no one reached for a weapon. No one screamed or ran. Captain Cho had made it very clear what would happen to anyone who caused trouble. Dr. Myre led the Kure to the medical bay. She worked through the night, treating old wounds that had never healed properly, infections that had been ignored for years, and scars both physical and emotional. Her gentle hands and calm voice did more to ease the Kurei's fear than any words could have. Ron was the most difficult patient. He growled at anyone who came too close and refused to lie down on the medical bed. He stood against the wall, watching everything with suspicious eyes. Then a young human woman walked in. Her name was Han Yoonji, and she was an engineer who had volunteered to help move equipment. She was small and cheerful, with bright eyes and a warm smile. She did not seem afraid of the Kure at all. She noticed Ron standing alone, his arms crossed, his face hard with distrust. Without asking permission, she walked up to him and held out her hand. In her palm was a small brown square. Chocolate, she said simply. Have you ever had it? It is sweet. Humans love it. Ron stared at her like she had lost her mind. He looked at the chocolate, then at her face, then back at the chocolate. It is not poison, Yoonji said patiently. Look, I will eat one too. She took a piece from her pocket and put it in her mouth, chewing happily. Very slowly, Ron took the chocolate from her hand. He sniffed it once, twice, 3 times. Then he put it in his mouth. His eyes went wide. His ears lifted. For a moment, his hard face changed completely, becoming young and surprised and almost innocent. What? What is this? He asked, his voice strange. I told you, Yoonji laughed. It is chocolate. Do you like it? Ron did not answer. He just stood there, looking at this small human woman who had offered him sweetness without asking anything in return. Something in his expression shifted. It was small, barely noticeable. But Jisoo, watching from across the room, saw it happen. A wall was coming down. Just a little. Just enough. The next 3 days were tense. The crew and the Kure moved around each other carefully, learning, watching, trying to understand. There were moments of fear and moments of confusion, but there were also moments of connection. Old Dan, who had barely spoken since coming aboard, found the ship's observation deck. He sat there for hours staring at the stars. One night, a young human officer named Yin Hajin found him there and sat down beside him. They did not speak. They just watched the stars together in comfortable silence. Little Sori discovered the ship's garden, a small room where the crew grew vegetables and flowers. She had never seen a living plant before. She touched the leaves with trembling fingers, tears running down her furry face. And Van began to teach. She gathered the crew members who were curious enough to listen and told them the real history of her people. She sang them songs that had been passed down for generations. She showed them what the Kure could be when they were not treated like monsters. But peace could not last forever. On the fourth day, a Valkyrie diplomatic cruiser appeared in front of the starboard sentinel. It was larger than the human ship, armed with weapons that could tear them apart in minutes. Its commander appeared on the main screen, his gray face cold and expressionless. "Captain Cho Taiho," the Valkyrie said. "You are harboring stolen property of the Valkyrie Empire. Return the Kure prisoners immediately or face the consequences." Captain Cho stood in front of the screen, his hands clasped behind his back. His face showed no fear. "The Kure are not your property," he replied calmly. "Under the right of sanctuary, they are now protected persons of the human coalition. I have transmitted evidence of systematic persecution to Coalition Command. Your claim has no legal standing." The Valkyrie's eyes narrowed. "You are one ship, Captain. Do you really want to start a war over 7 animals? First, they are not animals. They are people with rights and dignity that you tried to take from them." Captain Cho's voice hardened. "Second, I am not starting a war. I am following human law. If you attack us, you attack the entire human coalition. I do not think your empire wants that. This is your final warning, Captain, and this is mine." Captain Cho leaned forward slightly. "These 7 beings came to us asking for mercy. They were weak and wounded and dying. They had no power and no hope. And we chose to help them anyway. That is what humans do. That is who we are. We do not abandon people who ask for our protection." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Your ship is larger than ours. Your weapons are more powerful. You could destroy us in minutes. But if you do, the galaxy will know why. They will know that the Valkyrie Empire killed humans for the crime of showing kindness. Is that the story you want to tell?" The standoff lasted 3 days. 3 long, tense days while both ships waited and watched. Coalition vessels began arriving, answering Captain Cho's call for support. The Galactic Council demanded explanations. Reports and evidence flew back and forth across space. In the end, the Valkyrie withdrew. They could not risk a war over 7 refugees. Not when the evidence against them was so strong. Not when the eyes of the galaxy were watching. When their ship disappeared into the darkness between stars, the starward sentinel erupted in cheers. Humans and Kure celebrated together, a sight that no one in the galaxy had ever seen before. That night, Van found Jisu on the observation deck. The old Kure moved slowly, her wounds still healing. But there was something different in the way she held herself. Something lighter. She stood beside Jisu and looked out at the stars. "My people have a tradition," Van said quietly. "When someone saves your life, you owe them a debt. But that is not enough for what you have done. You did not just save our lives. You gave us back our hope. You reminded us who we are." She turned to face Jisu directly. Then she placed one clawed hand over her own heart and the other over Jisu's. "This means you are Pack," Van said. "You are family. Your children will be our children's family. Your people will be our people. This debt passes through blood and time. 1,000 generations will remember the human who chose mercy when mercy was rare." Jisu felt tears falling down her cheeks. "I just did what anyone should do." Van shook her head slowly. "No, you did what only humans do. You saw creatures the galaxy called monsters, and you looked for the people inside." She smiled, showing her sharp teeth. "That is a gift beyond price. 10 years later, the Kore had a home. A small world on the edge of human space, given to them by the Coalition. Their population had grown to over 2,000. They had rebuilt their culture, their songs, their stories. The nightmares of the prison camps were fading into memory, and they had become humanity's fiercest allies. Kore warriors volunteered for the most dangerous rescue missions. Kore hunters tracked down slavers and criminals across the galaxy. When humans called for help, the Kore answered without hesitation. Ron became a pack leader. He named his firstborn daughter Jisoo, and somewhere in the archives of the Galactic Coalition, a new entry was added to the cultural database under Humanity. It read, a species known for illogical compassion. They form bonds with strangers. They protect the weak. They show mercy to enemies. Approach with caution and hope, because sometimes hope was all anyone really needed.